The whole cycle, I prefer to be in the US than in Canada. We've had better growth in the US than in Canada. Obviously, having a cyclical economy does not help. And oil and gas, unfortunately, has, even though it's recovered, it has been sort of an issue in this cycle that's weighed on Canadian performance. And then politics and the fight that we have between BC and Alberta and the projects, the pipeline projects, not going ahead because we don't have strong, even though they've been approved,
Right.
there doesn't seem to be the federal, the politics, that the politicians are not strong enough to sort of insist that these projects can go ahead. That's a huge problem, because if the pipelines don't go ahead, you're talking billions of capital spending, which Canada desperately needs, right? Because where else are you going to find? There isn't a huge amount of capital spending that's going on in Canada. We don't have the same improvement in tax regime and the repatriation where we can find this cash flow for companies to be spending money. So we need mega projects. At least one or two would be nice. And yet politically, we're mired in these fights between the provinces and the federal government that shouldn't be happening, right? Because we need the spending. So that's kind of a big negative. And that might be the reason why you don't see any flows into oil and gas sector from foreigners. You look at the stocks, they're discounting much lower oil prices than we actually have. And part of the reason would be is the oil and gas patch is a mess, right? There doesn't seem to be any direction. So of course nobody wants to. Why would you invest in Canada? You can invest in the US, where the president and the administration has been much more pro oil and gas than in Canada, right? They've got rid of some regulations, and they've been much more willing to support the oil and gas business than the governments in Canada. So if you had a dollar, you would be putting it in the US, in almost any industry that you can think of. But oil and gas is obviously a big negative for Canada, because that is a huge industry. And it's an industry that spends a lot of capital. Like, that's a capital intensive industry. So if you lose that capital spending, it's meaningful, right? Because what else is there? So you really don't have a replacement for the potential oil and gas capital spending. Yes, I do like some of them. So I still like Boyd, but again, that's an old name that we've talked about. But that I own Boyd because almost 90% of their business is in the US, and it's a growth by acquisition story. So I like those that are not broken. Boyd's not broken. CCL's not broken. On the other hand, Alimentation looks a little broken. So that used to be a big holding for me. That no longer is a holding for me, because they've missed. It looks like every other quarter is a miss for them. And they need to make a couple of more acquisitions next year to sort of get their margins better. They have the disadvantage, obviously, of being influenced by margins at the gasoline margins, and they've been kind of all over the map, and that doesn't help them. So again, that's an example of a company that I don't need to own. I rather own Boyd, which has been much more predictable, than own Alimentation, that's been all over the map. Not all their quarters are poor, but they've had a couple of poor quarters. I don't like the unpredictability that I don't know that they will continue to deliver a good quarter every quarter. So Alimentation is gone and Boyd stays.